Hey guys, it's Sarah, and we are here. We are in Rhode Island, so I am now officially filming from our new house, and the move went really well. Actually, it was very quick, very quick, and we're here. So everything was good and smooth, and we're settled in and finally ready to start filming again. It feels really weird because I have not filmed in over a month, so it feels a little strange. But yeah, so everything is going really well so far. We were a little bit nervous about traveling during COVID, but we had to. We didn't have a choice. But everything was actually really good. We never felt unsafe, and we stayed in our car majority of the time, except obviously, gas and bathrooms and, food as quickly as possible. And we did stay in one hotel room the entire time. Other than that, we actually stayed with some friends, which was really nice. And then we were here. So it was like not a problem. When we got to Rhode Island, we had to self-quarantine for 14 days. So that was a thing, and that was state mandated. So if you came into the state from a hot zone, which Florida definitely decided to become a hot zone a week before we left. It's great. Thanks, Florida. We had to quarantine when we got here, which was not a problem. We had the house already. We literally drove into town and drove right to the house and got in. So that wasn't an issue for us. And we had the opportunity to get groceries delivered, which was really nice. Our stuff came the day after we got here. So, self-quarantining for 14 days wasn't a problem. We were able to get everything we needed. We had all our stuff. So it was real easy for us to just, get everything done and unpacked and all that, since we couldn't go anywhere anyway. Once we were good with the quarantine, we ventured out a little bit and kind of exploring, and it's really, really beautiful here. So, so far we're really enjoying it. But today, we are going to talk about all the books that I have read. So these are going to be books that are actually a little bit from the end of June and then all of July. And I have 13 books to talk about, so I'll talk about them quickly. A couple of them I'm probably not going to give you my star rating yet because they were for other projects I'll be talking about later. But it was really good reading. So there were 4 books that I finished up at the end of June that I didn't include in my June wrap up because I just didn't have the time to do it. I had to film that a little bit earlier, but I read 4 more books towards the end of June. And the first one is a book that I just randomly picked up. It was something that was sitting in my bedroom, and I was like, you know what? I really want to continue with this series. So I picked it up, and that is Beautiful Stranger by Christina Lauren. So this is the second book in her Beautiful Bastard series. And I flew through this book like I knew I would. I always fly through their books. And this was a good one. I really liked it. I think I liked it better than the first one. And this one follows the same group of people, basically, and it just follows a love story between one of the friends from the first books and a new love interest for her. And I really enjoyed it. They're just juicy. They're very smutty and just a really good time and really funny. I really enjoyed it a lot. Again, I sped through it really quickly. These do have little novellas in between each book, so I do want to read the novella that follows this one and then pick up the third one again soon, hopefully. But it is a series that I definitely, one that I want to concentrate on this year and read for my 20 series in 2020, which I'm doing better on. But yeah, this one was just, I kind of picked it up on a whim. It was what I wanted to read at the time. And I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't quite a 5, but just so much fun. The next book I picked up was an August review book, actually. So I will be getting into much more detail and all that stuff in my August ARC review, but I wanted to get a little bit of a head start on my August books, and this one is The Search Party by Simon Lalick, and this is I would say a mystery book. It was kind of like mystery thriller, but it's not necessarily thriller. It's more mystery. You're trying to uncover the mystery of a girl who has gone missing. No one knows where she is. Is she alive? Is she dead? No one knows. And the police are stumped. They have no idea what has happened to her. There's a friend group of hers that decides they're going to form their own search party and go out and search for her. And on that search party, things are kind of being let out, their secrets, all that kind of stuff. So it's told in different perspectives. It's told from the perspective of the detective who is working on this case, and it is also told from the perspective of some of the friends in the group. So you're getting multiple perspectives there. So, but definitely mystery, and I did enjoy it, but I'll save my star rating and more in-depth thoughts for my August arc review video. Then I decided to pick up another series that I knew I wanted to binge read this year, and I thought it would be a good time to do it because we're moving. I plan to listen to them on audiobook, and that's exactly what I did. So I started with The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith. Now, this is book number 2 in the series. The first one is called The Cuckoo's Calling, and this is the second book. And this one follows a detective called Cormoran Strike is his name, and he is a private investigator more than anything, and he runs his own business. He was an ex-military member. He got wounded in battle, and so he has a prosthetic leg, which can definitely hinder him sometimes while he's on cases and things like that. And then he ends up hiring a secretary, and she becomes a lot more than that. She's supposed to be a temporary person. He ends up hiring her on full time because she ends up being much better at her job than he was expecting. And she becomes very passionate about the work and the job as well. And they start to form a little bit of a relationship as well. There's definitely some tension there, but she is married. So it's very interesting. But I really enjoy this series, and this one was a good installation of it. I really enjoyed it. And they're really good on audiobook as well. So I definitely recommend the audiobooks if this is a series that you are interested in. But I did really enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars. And the next one that I decided to pick up is No Judgements, My Bag Habit. And this is actually an arc that I got last year when it came out, but I hadn't read it. So I decided to go ahead and pick it up now because I do have the sequel, or not a sequel, it's a companion novel to this one that is coming out in August. So I do plan to read that for August. And I thought, you know what, I need to read the first one and then read the sequel for August. So it was a good push for me to go ahead and get this one read. And this is another one that I ended up listening to on audiobook. It was fine. And this one was just a 3-star for me. It wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. So this takes place in a Key West town, and it's in the middle of a hurricane. That's the whole premise of this. And it's a woman who moves down there, and she was just kind of trying to get away from her life and had a bad relationship that she had just gotten out of. So she went down there just to kind of escape all that. And it's a very, very small town that's also a little bit touristy, but the locals there, they all know each other, they know all their business, all that good stuff. And she is trying to get acclimated into this town. And she is very attracted to one of the men who has lived there all his life. So you see them, kind of figuring all that out. And a hurricane is hitting this area, and it's like a category 5, really, really bad. Everyone's, people are panicking, and then some people are like, whatever, hunker down, it's fine. That's what Floridians do. But I don't know. The problem I had with this book was that there was a category 5 hurricane coming towards them. That's not okay. Even as a Floridian, you get out, and nobody was getting out. Absolutely nobody. There was explanations for the kind of the provisions that they had and safety measures and stuff. So they felt pretty safe. But at the same time, if I'm reading a book that the characters are currently going through a category 5 hurricane, I felt like it wasn't a big deal. When the storm was hitting and all that, it wasn't a big deal. But that's a big deal. I didn't get a sense of anyone being scared or nervous or anything like that. So I don't know. And then the other premise for this, which was part of what I really wanted to read about, was that she starts almost like an animal sanctuary for people who had to evacuate without their pets. And she takes them in. But that wasn't really a big thing in here. And that's what I was looking most forward to. And that really wasn't a focus in here. It did happen, but it was almost like an afterthought. So a little disappointed in this one. It wasn't quite what I was expecting it to be. It was fine, but not something I'll hold on to. Those are all the books that I finished up in the month of June. Now moving into July, this is when we were getting on the road and getting ready to move and everything. So a lot of audiobooks happened for me during that time because I listened to quite a bit while we were driving. And then, as we were unpacking and doing all that kind of stuff too, audiobooks was my go-to. So a lot of those. So the first one that I decided to listen to in the car was Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith. So this is book number 3 in the Comorian Strike series. And oh my gosh, you guys, this one was fantastic. It's my favorite of the series. It was so good. It was very, very dark. There was a serial killer in this book that was just, and you get his perspective. And that was disturbing. And it was really good. It took me by surprise how much, because I kind of thought this might be a series that I really, really liked, but it wasn't quite 5-star quality. This one was. This one was a 5-star. And I was just blown away by how dark it goes and how bad that killer was. I mean, there were some really gruesome thoughts going through his head and things he wanted to do to people, and the way he sees people was really interesting because he has a girlfriend that's really just kind of for face, I guess you could say, but he called her it in his head. He didn't even think of her as a person. He thought of her as an object, which was really interesting. And so this one was fantastic. Absolutely loved it. 5 stars. I was also reading a book on my Kindle, and I read The Wallflower Wager by Tessa Dare. So this is book number 3 in her Girl Meets Duke series, and I have read the series this year and I loved it. So I'm now caught up on that series. Book number 4 comes out early next year, I think February of next year. There's a 4th book coming out, so I'll be excited to get my hands on that one. But this is a historical romance, and I have just been eating these up. I love them so much. They're so much fun and definitely steamy. So definitely there's some love scenes and steamy scenes in here that get a little graphic, but they are just funny. Like, I laugh out loud during a lot of these because there's just banter between the two characters, between the two love interests all the time. And I just was living for it. So this one follows a woman. It's basically, there's a little friend group and there are 4 friends. And so each one follows one of the women and her love interest. So this one follows Penny, and she is single and living in the middle of the city. And then she has a neighbor who moves in who is trying to flip the house next to hers, kind of spruce it up and resell it. And they meet, and sparks fly, obviously. And the thing about Penny, though, is that she comes with a lot of animals because she basically runs an animal sanctuary out of her house. She loves animals. She feels a real connection to them, and she will take them in if they can't find other homes. And I mean, she has a dog with only 2 working legs. She has multiple kittens. She has an otter in the middle of a city. She has a goat. She has a steer. And she has a parrot that was probably one of my favorite things I've ever read. What this parrot does, because the parrot, mimics other people, and he came from a woman who lived in a brothel. So the things he picked up on were fantastic. It was so good. It was really, really funny. So this was just another really, really good installation to the series. I loved it. I did give it 4 stars. I didn't like it quite as much as, I think probably book 2 has been my favorite one so far, because that one features a character named Chase, and he is just like pitter patter. I love him. He's my favorite in the whole series so far. But this one was still, really good. And I do like the friendship that the main love interest in this one makes with the 2 love interests from the other ones. Like, they're kind of a bro club. They're so good. I love it. So those scenes made me really laugh as well with those 3 guys, and just so good. But yeah, so definitely highly recommend the series if you haven't picked it up yet. So that is one series I have completely caught up on. Very happy about that. And then I completely caught up on another series. So I read Lethal White by Robert Galbraith. So this is book number 4 in the Comorian Strike. So I really binge read the last 3 books in this series. And This one was long. It was a very long, longest one in the series so far. And this one wasn't quite my favorite. I did still enjoy it, but it wasn't as good as number 3, definitely. But I did still enjoy it. The biggest thing I liked about this book was that the relationship progression between Camoran and Robin. That was like, I liked following along with that. There was a good case that was happening, and I was trying to unravel things as we go along, obviously, but their connection together and things that were happening with their relationship was kind of what I was more interested in, and I did like where that was going. So this one I ended up giving 4 stars. It wasn't my favorite of the series, but I did really still enjoy it. I'm excited for the next one that is coming out, I think in September as of right now is when it's supposed to be coming out. It's called Troubled Blood. So I will definitely probably be pre-ordering that one and reading that one when it comes out. So that'll be another series that I will be caught up on. I'm not counting it yet until I read the 5th one because I want to do that. So, but yeah, I'm very excited about it. And then I picked up one of my 5-star predictions. So I'm not going to tell you my star rating on this one yet, but I picked up The Honey Don't List by Christina Lauren. And this one was a lot of fun. Of course, it's Christina Lauren. But this follows a reality TV show that is a home improvement show, kind of like Fixer Upper. And so it's a married couple. They're perfect, blah, blah, blah. They are TV personalities. They're pretty famous. They are about to go on a big book tour where they wrote a book together about their marriage, or not about their marriage, about how to have a happy marriage. So that's kind of the whole setup. However, they hate each other. They hate each other. They do not have a happy marriage. They can't stand to be in the same room half the time. So it's all kind of a farce, right? But they're staying together and, putting on this act because they're making so much money and they're getting all the fame and fortune and stuff. Now, this doesn't follow them. It follows their assistants. So her assistant and his assistant, boy and a girl, and it follows them and how they deal with everything and their relationship together as well, because they become attracted to each other during the course of this book tour. And it's kind of a hate to love, I would say, because they don't initially have an attraction to each other, or it's not something that they recognize, really. They kind of start out finding all the flaws in each other, basically. And then as time goes on, they start spending more time together and blah, blah, blah. So all that starts happening. But you get both perspectives. So you get hers and his. Each chapter goes back and forth. So yeah, but I'll save my star rating for that later, but it was adorable. Then another book I just picked up on a whim. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to read this book. It was another audiobook that I did because it's one that I knew I wanted to listen to on audio. I've heard really good things about it. And that is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. This is actually a book that Lindsay sent me for Advent. So thank you, Lindsay. And I knew I wanted to listen to it because I had heard really, really good things about it. So that's what I did. I was in the need for a new audiobook, so I decided to go ahead and pick up this one. It's pretty short. Trevor Noah does narrate it himself, which was fantastic. He did a really good job with it. And it was all about his life growing up in South Africa. And he called it Born a Crime because he literally was born a crime. When he was born, it was illegal for races to intermix and be married or have children or anything like that. But his mother is Black, his father is white. So he was literally born a crime during that time. So it talks about growing up with his mother. He didn't really know his dad. And his mother was an interesting person. And just all the hardships he had to deal with back then, because he kind of lived in a poor area of town, went through a lot of different race-related issues, in that time period. Nelson Mandela was a big thing that he was watching unfold and all that. And so he experienced a lot of things like that. And he got into some trouble, definitely, and he owns all that. But there was one scene that I was just laughing out loud, and it involved a friend of his who was named Hitler, Hitler, which apparently is a very common name in his area. And it's not a good thing when you take your friend named Hitler to a Jewish school. Just gonna leave that there. But yeah, it was really funny. So yeah, I really did enjoy this one. I did give it 4 stars. It wasn't a full 5 stars just because I was expecting it to be a little bit more funny than it was, because he is a comedian. So I was kind of expecting a little bit more humor on some certain things. There was some funny things. I was just expecting a little bit more. So I think that's a little bit like, that's kind of what I wanted. I didn't quite get it. So I did drop it down to 4 stars, but I really did enjoy this one and definitely recommend the audiobook. Next one I read was a library book, and I got this on my Kindle, and it's called Destiny's Embrace, and this is by Beverly Jenkins, and this is the first book in a series that she has, and it takes place on a ranch called Destiny. Now, this is a historical Western, basically, and I had seen this going around on Instagram a little bit, so I decided to go ahead and get it from my library. And this is a historical Western that features Black characters. So all the characters are either Black or Latino. Actually, there is a Latina character in here too. And so this one was interesting. It was kind of funny in certain ways. It takes place like, historical, like 1800s time frame. And there is a woman who is living with her mother. Her and her mother have a very toxic relationship. Her mother basically does not love her and makes that very known. And so she decides she is going to leave. She doesn't want to be around her mother anymore. She doesn't want any part of any of that. So she gets on a train and she goes from Pennsylvania to California, where she has this job interview to be a caretaker or a house cleaner, basically, on this farm. And it is for this man. So she goes out there to take advantage of this opportunity. And he picks her up from the train station, horse and buggy. They have to ride 4 hours from Sacramento out to where his ranch is, and it's just like kind of crazy. So she gets there and sees the state of his house, and just, it's really bad. So she's got her work cut out for her. So she decides to take this job, and she kind of whips the whole place into shape, basically. Now, this man is very stubborn. He's very set in his ways. No one thinks that, he will ever marry or find love or change his ways or anything like that. But of course, she's the one who changes all that. So this was good. It wasn't the best, I guess. The writing wasn't, the writing was pretty good. I'm trying to think. It's been a couple weeks since I've read it, so I'm trying to think what it was. There was something that did bother me. There was one section of the book that had a ton of typos, which, like, very blatant typos, and I'm wondering if that was like an editing problem. Like, there was just one section, it was probably 2 or 3 chapters where there were just typos everywhere. And I was like, did we miss this part of the editing process? I don't understand. And this is a book that's been out for a while, so it's not like a brand new release or anything. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. It took me out of the story a little bit, actually. And one thing I did really like with the man was his friendship with some of the people that worked for him. Like, that was great. I loved their friendship. A lot of it was pretty funny too, just, the way they tease each other and stuff. And yeah, so it was interesting. It wasn't my favorite thing that I read, definitely, but I'm glad I did read it. So I gave it 3 stars, and I probably won't continue with the series though, but I'm glad I got the story. The next one I picked up is another audiobook, and this is one that I actually got on Libro FM, and that's where I've been listening to a lot of my audiobooks lately. And this one is Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. Oh my gosh, you guys, I loved this book. I loved it, and I highly, highly recommend the audiobook if you can get your hands on it, because the narrator was fantastic, and the way that he told the story, just so much awkwardness was in here, and it was so good, and he really portrayed that awkwardness with his voice. Oh, it was so good. So I have heard Now, I got this question on Goodreads and I couldn't really answer it, but I have heard that this has the same kind of feel and vibes as Red, White, and Royal Blue. I have not read that book yet, though, so I can't really compare the two. Once I do read that book, I can do more of a comparison, but I haven't read it yet. But this one follows the son of a famous singer in London. The whole thing is set in London. So it's the son of a famous singer, and so he's in the spotlight a lot. And he kind of grew up that way and all that stuff. So he's in the limelight a lot. It's caused him a lot of problems in the past with press and relationships and all that stuff. So it's kind of a mess, right? So he finds himself in a situation where he needs to basically have a fake boyfriend because he is working at this nonprofit and they want him to be putting out a good image for them, but he's getting some bad press because of his dad and all this stuff. And so basically they want him to do something that would make him look good to the donors of this nonprofit. So he decides he's going to get a fake boyfriend, and he finds a man who is willing to fulfill that role for him. And, in return, hey, I need a date to this too. So why don't, I'll do this for you. You do this for me. And then we can go our separate ways. But of course, right, it becomes something more. And it was so adorable, you guys. I loved these two together. It was just, I loved Luke so much. He's the son of the famous singer, and he was so adorably awkward. Oh, I couldn't even take it. And he really felt that Oliver, who was his fake boyfriend, was too good for him. And but Oliver is just something else. He is the prim and proper, and oh my gosh, he's a lawyer. I can't. He was so good. And then their relationship together was just so good, and I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it. I didn't want to stop listening to it. I was laughing out loud quite a bit. Oh, it was so good. So highly, highly recommend. I gave it 5 stars. So please read that one. And then I finished up another series for my 20 and 20 series in 2020. Oh my goodness. So I read The Revolution of Ivy by Amy Engel, and this is her conclusion to the Book of Ivy. So it's only a duology, only 2 books, but I did finish it and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being back in this world. I love Bishop so much. He's one of my favorite characters. I love him. And he finally came and showed up, and he was there, and he was just being his little bishop self, and it was just so good. I don't know, I ate it up. I loved these 2 books here. I didn't like this one quite as much as the first one, to be honest with you. I think I liked the first one a little bit better, but this one was still really good. And this one, Ivy has basically she's in a whole different environment from the first book. I'll just put it that way. And it's a very dangerous environment. So I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin the first book, but oh my gosh, it was so good. So I gave this one 4 stars just because it wasn't quite as good as the first one, but I still really loved it. And I'm really glad I finished the duology. And then the last book that I read in July is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. And this is a book of short stories, all written by this author, that feature women as the main characters. And this one was sent to me from Krista for our Advent book exchange last year. So I read a couple of Advent books this month, and I'm really excited about that. Those are books I want to start concentrating on a little bit more. But this one was really good. So this has 8 different short stories. Again, they all feature women, and they all kind of have some themes that women deal with in their lives. Yeah, so they're all very different, though. They are all extremely different. So I don't even know what I would categorize this as. I could probably put it more in like a fantasy type of category. If I had to pick a genre, I'd probably say fantasy, but not all of them are fantasy. So it's a little interesting, I think, more than not. But I really enjoyed quite a few of these stories. There were maybe like 1 or 2 that just didn't quite work for me, but all the rest of them really did. So I can tell you a couple off the top of my head, even though I just read it. But Basically what I did was I took the 8 stories and I gave them each individual ratings, 5-star ratings, and then I did the average. So the average of this book was a 4, like it was exactly a 4. So the first story was called The Husband Stitch. I gave that one 5 stars. I really, really liked it. The second one was Inventory, which is a woman who is taking inventory of all of her sexual partners over her lifetime. And they're in the middle of a pandemic, which is interesting as well. I gave that one 5 stars. I really liked that one. The third one was Mothers. I gave that one a 2. I didn't really get that one, to be honest. Especially Heinous, I gave a 3. And the reason I gave that one a 3 is because that's a story that takes episodes from Law and Order SVU and kind of takes a little twist on them. It even has the titles of the episodes that she is talking about and just takes those characters and puts a little twist on them. So that one didn't quite work for me because I've never seen that show. I don't know these characters. I don't know what happens in the show. It didn't really mean much to me. Now, if she'd done like Criminal Minds or Castle or something like that, I would have been all over it. But it didn't really, I didn't care because I've never seen the show. So I didn't even really understand fully what her twists were, if that makes any sense. So I gave that one a 3. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for other people. And I do appreciate what she was trying to do. I think that's a really cool idea. It just wasn't something that I could really relate to. So the next story is Real Women Have Bodies, which I gave 5 stars. That was fantastic. And then 8 Bites, I gave 4 stars. The Resident, I gave 4 stars. And Difficult at Parties, I gave 4 stars. So this definitely, each one of these stories just focuses on something completely different and important as well. So there's definitely a lot of trigger warnings in here about all sorts of things. You know, there's body shaming, basically. There's rape. There is a sense of, there's one of these stories is literally women are fading away. So it's really, really interesting. I really enjoyed it a lot. So this is probably going to be one that I actually end up keeping on my shelves. And yeah, so overall I gave it 4 stars. Okay, guys, those are all the books that I have recently read the entire month of July and end of June. And, yeah, I feel like I've been talking forever already. So I know that was a lot. I'm very excited about August, and I will be back tomorrow with my August TBR. I'm still trying to kind of get my thoughts together on all that. But we'll be back tomorrow for that one. So let me know your thoughts down below. Have you read any of these books? Thank you guys all so much for your well wishes on our move. And I'm happy to say that we are here and good and everything was great. So thank you guys. And I will see you again soon. Hope you have a great day.